Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What would you say if I told you there's a book that can teach you how to win The Bachelor?
What would you say if I told you producers caught multiple finalists reading that book in this season that's currently airing?
What would you say if I told you the producers don't want anyone to know that their show has been compromised?
How do we know all this? We wrote that book.
I'm Lizzie Pace.
And I'm Chad Kulchin.
We're the authors of How to Win the Bachelor and the hosts of the Game of Roses podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we break down all the biggest plays, errors, and MVPs in the game of reality television.
Listen to Game of Roses wherever you get your podcasts and go to howtowinthebachelor.com to get our book.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hi, it's Dave here. This is my wife, Cathy.
Hello.
This is the Cinemile where we walk home from the movies. We are about to go into the movies. We're next door in a cafe having a cup of tea because it's lashing.
It is torrentially
That's
raining.
what we say in Ireland. Is that an Irish thing?
I don't know, but it's torrential.
It is lashing out there.
It's lashing. And it's actually a Thursday afternoon and it's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
And my birthday wish...
I've just discovered it on
my
this
birthday
podcast.
wish was for Dave to take a half day with me, and we went for a nice lunch, and then we go and see Judy.
Yes.
Along with all the golden oldies.
She sang Someday.
Yeah, somewhere over the rainbow.
Maybe on Thursday.
And it's because I've actually been really wanting to see this since it came out, but it came out the opening weekend. We went to Joker, and then it's not really been the reason we need to take a half
Joker
day
and
off
Judy
work.
would be a good...
It would be a good double bill. But
yeah.
this... it's not on in the evenings. Well, not near us anyway. You actually have to go in the afternoon.
Yeah, this is a midweek afternoon movie.
Yeah.
It's unavailable if you are gainfully employed.
So luckily we've annual leave left over. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. It's like the perfect birthday. And it's a kind of thing that's nice to go and see on a rainy day as well.
Why are you so excited about this film in particular?
Well, I love...
Are you a big Judy girl?
I honestly don't know that much about Judy Garland, but I really truly love The Wizard of Oz. More than I can say. It's just absolutely one of my favourite movies of all time, and I love her in it, and she's so exquisite. And then I don't really know like much of her career after that. Obviously I know she kind of battled a lot with like eating disorders and like mental health problems, and I know that she attempted suicide like upwards of over 20 times, something like that. And she, I think, like very early on was having like mental breakdowns. Like I think she was absolutely chewed up by the studio system back then. And you know, when she was a kid, like she was said to sing like an adult even as a young girl because her voice was so big and booming and exquisite. So, but I don't really know anything about her personally, and I don't know anything about her latter life. And this movie is set over a short period late in life for her. So I'm just really intrigued, to be honest. And Renee Zellweger sings all the music herself, and apparently she's amazing.
Really? I didn't know she could sing.
Well, she was in Chicago, remember?
Oh, yeah.
So
I
yeah,
had no time for that movie.
I never saw it, actually. But yeah, Renee Zellweger as well, I'm a big fan of hers. So, and apparently everyone's saying she should get an Oscar for this. It's like across the board Oscar buzz.
But this is an Oscar-looking movie, isn't it? All I've seen is the poster, and I know this.
I've seen is a
the
clip.
Oscars love a biopic.
I haven't seen a trailer, but I watched her on Graham Norton talking about it, and they showed a clip, and it seemed like she just seemed amazing in that one clip.
What's the name of that Netflix show she was in recently, and we watched the pilot, and it was
God.
Indecent Proposal, but like swapped. She
played Robert Redford's character,
yeah,
and she was proposing a hot young barman / firefighter.
Barman / fireman, as you do.
We watched the pilot of that, and she was like, the pilot wasn't very good, but she was so enjoyable and she was so camp. And I thought, God, I haven't seen her in a long time, excepting that the Bridget Jones Diary that came out about 3 years ago,
which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, she took a long time out of movies. And I think she's brilliant, so I'm really pleased she's back again. And I think she looks really like Judy Garland in the clips I've seen. But yeah, I can't wait to hear her singing.
I'd never have pegged her for Judy Garland.
I wouldn't have either.
No.
It's wonderful casting though, because she really looks like her. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm so thrilled, and because it's my birthday, I'm going to get a brownie when we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on me.
Thanks.
All right, well, I wish I could
decadent
wish I
to
could
have
gather
a brownie and go to the cinema
on a Thursday afternoon. I know, right?
It's awesome.
I wish I could gather as much enthusiasm as you have. I have more enthusiasm for this than I have at being at work. So I guess
you should hope so.
So there's that.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely things are looking up.
But you might like it.
Oh, I might like it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, going into this, I'm not like, yeah, Judy.
I mean, it would be probably weird if you were. Yeah, we'll just have to see how it goes. But it feels like quite low key. So,
all right.
Yeah, I think there'll be tears from both of us.
Challenge accepted. It's not easy to make me cry.
It's very easy to make you cry.
Let's go. Yeah, Judy.
Bye.
Let's do it.
Are you going to be all right?
What if I can't do it again?
Mama? Mama, are you there?
Somewhere
You need to take better care of yourself. You understand?
over the rainbow,
Everybody has their troubles, and I've had mine. I just want what everybody wants. I just seem to have a harder time getting it.
Do you take anything for depression?
4 husbands. Didn't work.
Right, okay. It stopped raining, but my face is wet. That's fucking hell. That was devastating.
Yeah, Dave, given you were such a doubter before we went in, what are your thoughts?
I wasn't a doubter. I just wasn't very interested in the movie.
What are your
but
thoughts
I really,
on the movie?
really recommend seeing this. It's a beautiful movie. And I don't know anything. I really don't know anything about Judy Garland, except Wizard of Oz and Gay Icon. They're the only 2 things I could have told you. I mean, I did know about the what the studio did to her. But this, so I can't. Fine, 3 things. I can't really speak to sort of the whether or not this is a portrayal, an accurate portrayal of her as a person.
You don't need to do that. You can just
no, and I'm not
discuss
going
it as a
to.
movie.
But what as a person that this movie presents, I found her to be wholly lovable and endearing and tragic and self-destructive, and somebody who's essentially in a prison, not of her own making, one that she was trapped in because of her success. And it's a story that we've seen played out in front of, on a global scale, by the entertainment industries for decades and generations. We've seen it as far back as the early studio system of Hollywood in a very different and sinister way. We saw it in the 70s and 80s, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman. We've seen it with Amy Winehouse. It's reflective of our society, the way we revere people and as an audience are hungry for them, and then the people around the people with talent see that and profit off it and try and control it. And it's a very common story, and it's portrayed in the most heartbreaking way here, all through her eyes, by Renee Zellweger in just a staggering
She's unbelievable.
Performance.
Yeah.
I thought she was amazing. I just cared for her so much, and I was just a mess. I was an absolute mess at the end of this movie,
I did
and
hear
several
very
times
loud
throughout this
weeps
movie.
next to me.
I thought it was absolutely heartbreaking. I'm very emotional.
Yeah. For anyone who's interested, we were the only people in the audience who didn't have white hair. I've never noticed that before, because I walked in and the lights had already dimmed, but there was trailers playing, and just the spotlight from the screen was just bouncing off all the grey heads. It was amazing.
But it's an afternoon. Everyone's at school or in work or
well, that's
retired.
what I basically, when we retire, that's us. We're in the cinema every afternoon, right?
Still doing this podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Welcome to episode 6024 of the cinema.
Anyway, honestly, it was like,
And we'll be reviewing Star Wars episode 26.
I knew I'd enjoy this movie, but I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. It's devastating, like you said. It's exquisite. Renee Zellweger, I always knew she was a good actress, and I've always liked her. But this is something else. Like, this is transcendent, this performance. I felt like I was watching Judy Garland, particularly in profile. She is so like her. I know they've clearly given her false teeth, and I saw her talking on Graham Norton about how she adapted Judy Garland's like hunched shoulders.
Yes.
But it's something else. Like, I mean,
she's very hunched.
Like, to have the courage to sing as Judy Garland and do such a good job is outstanding. Like, you know, in the recent Bohemian Rhapsody movie, that wasn't him singing. Like, most of the time, like, to live up to... And Judy Garland's, like, the most famous for her voice more than anything else. So to be able to do that and do it so well is just phenomenal. But even aside from the singing, even if she hadn't been singing, her performance is unbelievable. She's so nuanced, and she can be so over the top 1 minute and so, like, silently devastated the next minute. But all of that aside, right, even though you can't talk about this movie without talking about her performance, first and foremost, I think it's such a well done movie because it doesn't in any way fall into the usual traps of like biopics. It's very much focused around this one part of her life, and then there's only flashbacks to one other part of her life. So it's not gone and done that awful thing of trying to start from A to Z and just drag you along like so many movies do, and they get really tedious. We got a chance to really explore her in this late stage of her life. I can't believe she was only 47 when she died. Like, she seemed so much older. You know that footage you see of her as an older woman?
Oh my God, yeah.
I did not know she was only 47. I really didn't.
I really agree. They don't give you A to Z. They just give you A and Z.
Yeah.
They give you the beginning and the end, and they inform each other and reflect each other, because the same thing is happening to her towards the end of her life.
She's just a product, isn't she?
It's the same exact thing. They're just different faces controlling her.
Yeah, she's just a
and
product
she
that
has
is
no,
brought on stage.
Yeah, she's a
to
commodity.
Make money. Yeah.
She's a commodity, and even her husband's used her as a commodity. And we meet one of her new relationships in this movie, who again just sees her as with dollar signs.
Though we have to say, though, this movie is very sympathetic and kind of from her perspective. I mean, I'm sure she was no walk in the park to be married to either. They hint at that, like, she's very self-destructive, and, you know, she is unreliable. Like, there's a reason she can't get booked. But it's devastating because we see her drug and alcohol addiction as an adult. But we know, I mean, we both knew before we saw this movie, she was given drugs on the set of The Wizard of Oz by the studio. So, like, she was addicted to diet pills at whatever age she was in that movie. She'd been given uppers, downers. She had disordered eating. She had a lifetime of eating issues. And it's just, and all of that could make up a trite movie, but this movie is not trite because it was handled so delicately.
I will say though, the flashback scenes with her as a child in the studio system occasionally teetered on trite for me. As soon as Renee Zellweger comes off screen, and it felt a bit almost stagey. I mean, literally, they were on stages.
They were on sets, yeah.
But and I'm not saying it did, because I think they absolutely reined it in. And as a whole, there's very little wrong with this movie. I think it's near perfect. But occasionally it did teeter on almost like premium Hallmark movie in terms of its subject, which I think in some ways it can't help but doing, because it's
in Hollywood on a movie set. But also it's the kind of storyline, you know, lots of women's stories are the ones that tend to get relegated to that sort of environment. So when you're watching a movie about a young girl struggling with those kind of issues, you can naturally think of some cheesier movies because they can tend to be the subject matter.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing. And, like, you know, Renee Zellweger is like a true method actress. Like, when she was playing Bridget Jones, she did the whole... She spoke in an English...
diary.
She wrote it. She spoke in an English accent the whole time. Like, she really commits. Like, in Bridget Jones, she has an amazing English accent, by the way. Like, most Americans can't do that. That's a total by the by, but she is like a true actor, like actress of a generation. I mean, I know she's won loads of Oscars anyway, or been nominated for loads of Oscars for like Cold Mountain, Chicago, I can't remember what else. But this feels like it just completely cements her as that, like, a superstar, and like only someone as good as her could have played Judy Garland, and to pull it off in this way is just like, it's unbelievable. Like, the director, I mean, they must have been watching her performance just like dying. I mean, what a gift to have her. But I think
she props the whole movie up, but actually it's a really well-rounded screenplay.
Yeah,
I saw
really
it was
well-written.
adapted from a stage play, which kind of makes sense. It's tight, and it's like
it's long, but it doesn't feel long because there's not a moment wasted in it.
No, but everything. Yeah, exactly. Not a moment wasted, but every character is informing her and reflecting her in the way she views the world.
Yeah.
What I found so tragic about her was this prison that she's in which it's described in the opening scene. This isn't really a spoiler, by her studio prison warden, essentially, who's describing the ordinary life across America. Across America, there are these tiny towns with girls who may be prettier than you, but they don't have what you have. You've got the voice.
The worst part is he says they're all prettier than you. You're not pretty. You're fat.
The level of
your parents don't love you.
Psychological, very subtle psychological abuse that was inflicted upon her is just nasty.
And I'm sure it was probably more overt than that back in the day, but for the movie's sake, they didn't want it to be so ham-fisted.
What he was expressing to her is an outside world that he says to her. That there's a line which is essentially, you can step out of these doors, these studio set, at any time, and you can go out there and you can disappear like a drop in an ocean, and we'll all forget about you. And in a way, she's trapped because she's attracted and seduced by the stage and the lights and the audience.
She lives for the audience.
We see that, and she lives it.
And they say from the age of 2 she couldn't be dragged off a stage.
Yeah, so she can't give it up. But at the same time, she's looking from the inside out at a world she can't inhabit, this ordinary life. And it's so easy, it's so easy for us to look at celebrities, and we've had these conversations several times, but you can look at them and say, oh yeah, they're privileged, they have everything. But it's an absolute trap. The more famous you become, the less freedom you have.
Well, the difference as well, like with Judy Garland and other people you mentioned, like the Coreys, Judy Garland was entered into the studio system, which we know was an awful one anyway, particularly for women. But she couldn't consent to that. Like, you can't legally consent before the age of 18. And I think she was 13 maybe, making The Wizard of Oz. Don't quote me on that number, I could be wrong. But she was in stuff before The Wizard of Oz too. She was already part of the studio system. Like, she didn't really... This is why you need people protecting children's rights, because of course she wanted to be in The Wizard of Oz. Who wouldn't? Of course she wanted to be on stage. But what she didn't want is to be working 18 hours a day, being addicted to diet pills, not allowed to eat, and like completely separated from any normality. And that's why you need people who look after children in these situations in showbiz, because a child cannot consent to that workload.
Yeah.
And to have someone say, okay, you can be Dorothy or you can fuck off, basically, is like the ultimatum. Like, of course she's going to pick to be Dorothy. But I think, even though it's real life, I think we should go to Spoiler Street to talk about this movie.
Okay.
A huge endorsement from us both, though.
Yeah,
don't overlook it.
Go find this movie. Yeah. Take a half day off work on a Thursday and go with your grandparents.
Go see it. And honestly, I cried so much. I cannot remember the last time I was this touched by a movie. I actually felt a bit ill at one point because I was crying so much, and I could just hear Dave weeping next to me. It's just fantastic, and I love it.
Yep, all right, but some awkward segue to plug our Patreon now. Before we get to Spoiler Street, how about this one? How about, speaking of really successful people with horrible lives that they can't escape, we just watched all of Succession Season 2. And if anyone's not watching Succession, go watch that because it's amazing. And we recorded a 2-hour episode chatting about that because we are obsessed with it. I think it's the longest episode we've ever done.
Definitely the longest episode we've ever done.
That's available over on our bonus podcast feed, available exclusively to our Patreon subscribers at thecinemaile.com/Patreon. It's called the Cinemile High Club. Loads of retro movie and TV reviews. That's the latest. Head over there and subscribe if you want to help us out and support the show. Just like John Dennehy, thank you, John. Philip Bridgehouse, thank you, Philip. Danny, JP, Kate, and Martin Gannon. Thank you all for subscribing.
Thank you so much.
For $2 or $3 a month.
And for all your contributions, because how it works is we do, like, every month we do bonus TV and movie reviews. But also we do these really fun polls with our listeners and our patrons where they pick what we're going to watch next, and people are so interactive on it, so we love that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun in there, so check it out if you're if you want more of this nonsense. Right
now,
Spoiler Street for Judy.
I want to talk specifically about a couple of scenes, okay?
Go on.
Because there's 3 scenes in this movie that I literally could not cope with because they were so poignant. So the first one that just, like, so she's so lonely, right? She's gone to London because she needs to make money. Ooh, it's quite mucky here. She needs to make money because she doesn't have a home for her children to live in, and their dad, I think, quite rightfully, is insisting they live with him because he's got a house. So she's gone to London because it's the only place she can get a gig, basically. And she says, the English are crazy, to which no one in our audience laughed.
I laughed.
Me. Yeah, we laughed. The English people in the audience didn't laugh. And anyway, she's so lonely. She's on every sort of, I guess, upper, downer. Know what she's taking. She can't sleep. And presumably she's jet lagged.
How about that very uncomfortable moment in the taxi with her daughter when the daughter sees her take a pill and says, "Please don't go to sleep now, Mummy."
Yeah, like the daughter knows she's taking, and she says, "Don't worry, it's not one of those tablets. It's the other kind."
Yeah.
Anyway, she gets to London. She can't sleep, right? And after one of her shows, this gay couple who've been going to all her shows are waiting at the stage door.
Yeah, this whole thing
and
just ruined me.
And this just was like, she's so lonely. It's midnight, and they're like, we love you. And she's like, let's go for dinner. And it turns into this wonderful scene where she ends up in their apartment and they're like cooking for her, and she just needs love and affection, and they love her so much, and it turns into this wonderful moment, and it kind of peaks. One of them's playing the piano and she's singing, and I mean, I was just crying anyway because it was so tender. But then he can't even play the piano anymore because he's so overwhelmed with emotion because he loves her so much. And he's crying, she's hugging him. And again, that all sounds really trite, but it wasn't.
No, that's one of
so
the best scenes of the movie.
Yeah.
But you know what as well? It was like, I liked how they subtly wove in her status as a gay icon.
Yeah, very subtle.
Was not ham-fisted. And also they sort of managed to parallel the fact that these two men were also in a prison. Literally, he refers to, in a literal sense.
His partner
was in prison because being gay was a crime when they first tried to see her, which is just heartbreaking. So they are sort of these 2 or 3 lonely lost souls,
I know,
who kind of found each other across an ocean through music.
And then in the end, and she says, every time
wonderful.
I see you two, I look out in the audience and I see you two, and I know you're my allies. And then in that moment they realise that as much as like she means to them, he realises they actually mean something to her. And in the end that comes through again. So that was an amazing scene. Then the other scene I wanted to talk about was but
actually, sorry, just to touch on that once more, that also is her. It wasn't just her seeking, she clearly is lonely and has no actual friends. The people she refers to as her friends when her
staff.
Boyfriend comes along and they go to the pub. Yeah, they're just her caretakers, essentially. But these are 2 people who are the most ordinary people she knows, as in, who has just said, like, that's the life she yearns for, that she can't have.
And they're a loving couple who just live in the small flat together and they don't really have anything.
But she loved it, like, and they were so embarrassed about we can't find a place to eat, and oh my god, you put cream in the omelette, and it was just like she was just so happy. She was happy in that moment.
That was the happiest we saw her in the whole movie.
Just no expectation.
Yeah.
Just hanging out with these two people who wanted to hang out with her, and it was just I loved it.
It was amazing. They weren't asking anything of her. And then the other one I wanted to talk about was there's a lot going on in the movie in terms of like her kids and the kid's dad actually, you know, is fighting for custody, and she really wants to have the kids, but she does not have the means. And then there's this devastating scene where she phones her daughter from a phone box, and she says to the daughter, you know, if you want to be somewhere stable and not get moved all the time, like, that's okay, you can tell me. And in that scene I was like, oh, she's actually a really good mom, because she actually, as angry as she got with the ex-husband when he told her the kids don't want to move anymore, she did come back and put her pride aside, and she actually phoned, like, she knew at that point she wasn't going to get the money to buy a house.
She gave them the choice.
Yeah, she said to the daughter, like, it's okay, you can tell me this. And the daughter tells her, like, yeah, thanks, I do. And I just couldn't stop, like, and then Judy is just,
she's heartbroken.
It's okay, I love you, and she's bawling, crying in the phone box, but she says to the daughter, it's okay, I love you. And I just thought, oh, she's such a good mom in that scene. Like, that's absolutely the right thing to do, even though she obviously has her flaws as a mother.
Well, what a difficult thing to do, to put, that's, and you know, she's putting her children's needs above her own feelings, which is, you know, sounds like an obvious thing to do, but that's a devastating thing to be that far from your children. I can't imagine, like, I went away for a week recently, and I found it really hard to be away from you and Oscar. And
it's just, it was, that scene was like, I was like, Renee Zellweger is acting the pants off this phone box. Like, she needs nothing else in her hand but a phone.
Put that on a t-shirt. Yeah. Renee Zellweger is acting the pants off this phone box.
And then the last scene I wanted to talk about was the whole movie, right? Somewhere Over the Rainbow is possibly one of my favourite songs ever written. I think it is, like, almost, like, I can't think of an example of a song that's as enduring, beautiful, and it's such a stunning song, right? I absolutely love it. And I was waiting for the whole movie, and I just kept waiting for her to sing it. And when she finally sang it, before she'd even started and before they'd even said she was going to sing it, I just thought she was going to sing it, and I was already crying. And then it was, oh my god, Renee Zellweger, like Anne Hathaway, eat your heart out in Les Mis. I actually think in this scene that she wasn't miming, she was actually singing, but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
It was unbelievable anyway.
Do you know what was so good about it was the range of emotions that she,
that's what I mean, in one song,
that she goes through in that song, that also reflect every state we saw her experience in that movie. So it we see joy, then anger. It goes into, she gets angry at one point, and then it just breaks down. She can't finish the song from the sadness.
And there's a bit where the audience, her two fans,
that was too much for me.
And they started singing, and I thought, oh no, this is getting too cheesy. But then I thought, actually, the whole movie has been about how much she needs adoration, and she's constantly saying how much she gives, and she never gets anything from anyone, and no one helps her perform. So actually, in that moment, albeit it was cheesy, they helped her, and she not only got audience validation, but she actually got support, because she wasn't able to sing the end of the song. I mean, and I thought that was wonderful.
I'm not going to argue with you that thematically that's very neat, but
and they were her two allies.
Maybe that did actually happen, but it was, for me, so cringy and the equivalent of like a slow clap from a sports movie.
And yet you were crying very loudly when it happened.
But I was already crying. The tears weren't stopping at that stage, right?
I had water like dripping on my jeans, right? That's how much I was crying.
And do you know when the tears intensified then, when they hit you with the last whammy of, she died 6 months later, she was 47.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourselves, audience. And I was just like, oh man.
Yeah.
Just
and she just said, you won't forget me, will you? And it's like, oh. And again, if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't be listening to Spoiler Street, but we're probably making it sound cheesy, but like, go and watch it. And I think it's really one to see in a cinema as well. Like, I thought it was...
It teeters on cheesy occasionally, but so rarely. And it's just like, she just carries the whole... The foundation of the movie around her is really good, and she elevates it. So it's like...
And you mentioned Amy Winehouse earlier, but like we rewatched the Amy Winehouse documentary this year because we had the director Asif Kapadia on our live show this summer, and there's scenes in this movie.
There's a lot of parallels.
There's scenes in this movie that are verbatim Amy Winehouse scenes from that documentary, where she's on stage, she doesn't know what city she's in, she falls over, she's so high, she's so drunk, the audience is mocking her, and you just think, these poor women that are put in these situations, like the Amy Winehouse in that particular concert, it was like everyone around her knew that she should not be on stage, and they had financial commitments, they put her there anyway. This was slightly different in that actually somebody tried to not let Judy Garland go on stage, and she kind of forced herself on. But again, Judy Garland is just a product of this life she had. So I just couldn't believe. I was like, oh my god, to watch this same scene twice in 1 year, one of which was actually real footage, one of them was the movie, but I'm sure this is based on, like, I had read before that at the London show people had thrown bread at her and stuff. And she does this amazing scene where she's doing a TV interview and he's being a little bit flippant and asking her about her custody battles, and she's like, I'm a real person and this
really
is
intense.
my family.
Yeah.
You it's not sport to ask somebody about a custody battle with their children.
But that's the thing. Nothing has changed in terms of celebrities and society's expectations of their expectation of ownership of them and everything that goes into their lives. We're seeing it with Meghan Markle now. We've seen it over decades and decades about everybody. We feel like we own them, and we should have. And that
say we,
the newspapers.
Generally, you don't mean us.
I mean no, I don't. But people, and the British press in particular feel that they have a responsibility to report this because it's in quote unquote the public interest. And you saw it with Ben Stokes, the cricket player, recently. We're seeing the same cycle happening with Instagram influencers and Love Island contestants. It's a eat them up, take everything you can get, chew them, spit them out, and forget about them.
Yeah, and you completely dehumanise these people.
Yeah, they are. It's a vicious,
and it's not just the English media; it's all over the world.
No, it's not. It is everywhere.
But yeah,
it's not everywhere. It's probably not in some like.
I mean, it'd be particularly heightened in places like London and LA, right? Places where celebrities are. But yeah, it's just
anyway.
Such a good movie. Yeah, and it's like it could be set now.
It's got thematically. It says a lot. That's what the best cinema does. It makes you think about the world we live in.
Yeah,
and it did it through the lens of an absolutely just beautiful, heart-wrenching person that lived, and give us a glimpse of her. And again, I'm not sure how much of that is true. I'm sure, like with anything, there's reading between the lines. But the whole package there, I just was, I thought was sensational.
I actually had forgotten that Liza Minnelli was her daughter as well. We briefly saw her.
Oh, was that Liza Minnelli in the? Oh, of course, yeah. Oh my god!
I mean, Liza Minnelli looks so like.
She even looked like her.
Yeah.
I mean, the actress looked like a young Liza Minnelli.
Yeah. Oh god.
All
anyway.
Right.
Love it.
Let's wrap it up.
But honestly, I can't remember the last time I loved like with my heart loved a movie that much. Often you watch a movie and like intellectually it was great and you can really admire it, but it's so interesting because like her two super fans say like your voice bypasses her ears and we feel it in our hearts, and I feel like that about the movie. Like even that bit at the end where borderline even I thought it was a little bit cheesy, the over the rainbow thing, I didn't care because it was so touching.
Yeah.
I just can't remember.
Do you think that happened in real life? I sincerely doubt it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure whenever she sang
there's
Over
no
the
way,
Rainbow...
There's no way a British audience did that.
I'm sure whenever she sang Over the Rainbow, people would have joined in.
Do you think people
there are videos of her on YouTube singing when she's older, and it's incredible, like her singing that song, yeah.
Do you think people were actually throwing their breadsticks
that happened, apparently.
Her? Oh, God.
And people are horrible, like, but also, if you think about it, to be fair, again, this movie's sympathetic to her, if you'd paid, hundreds of pounds to see her, and she shows up 2 hours late and completely pissed, I mean, I wouldn't throw bread at someone, but I understand the sentiment.
Like when Axl Rose came out an hour late a few years ago in Dublin, and they were all booing him And then he says something like, fuck you all, and walked away.
But that's pretty much
just
what
like
she
that.
did. It's pretty much like that.
Give me the Axl Rose biopic.
So I understand for sure the audience's frustration, and I'm not like saying that was a good thing to do. And again, like, this movie obviously was sympathetic to her.
What if they double billed this with a movie that's written from the perspective of an audience member that had been saving up his whole life to see Judy Garland, and then she showed up really late and he got pissed off?
I mean, I think you'd get, to be honest, I think if an act did that, you get your money back. Oh, there's one more scene I wanted to talk about, because the whole movie, like, we're seeing flashbacks to her wanting to eat as a kid and being told she's not allowed to eat, she's too fat. We see a scene with her husband saying, like, have breakfast, and she's like, no, like, we've never seen her eat in the whole movie. We've never seen her eat except as a kid when she shoves a burger in her mouth.
Cake.
Yeah, they buy her a cake, and these two people are just eating the cake as normal, and her eating is so disordered that she's just staring at this piece of cake, and eventually she takes one tiny bit on her fork and eats it, and it's like a huge thing for her to be able to do that, and that is just devastating as well. And like, when the doctor says to her, like, you're really underweight, and she says, oh, now you're just flirting with me. And like, that's a funny line, but that's also devastating that's how she saw that.
It tells you so much about the product of the environment that she grew up in.
It's just so sad anyway, honestly. But the movie is so beautiful that, like, I don't feel, even though I cried a lot and thought it was really sad, I don't feel sad leaving it. I still think, like, I'm so happy I saw it. Whereas, like, when I left Joker, I just felt so devastated and awful after it for ages. That's not how I feel after this movie.
Well, she speaks about hope before, the way she intros the Somewhere Over the Rainbow is, I don't know, the writing was quite beautiful around it.
It was wonderful.
What did she say? Something like, this is about walking towards your dreams, but actually sometimes the walk is all there is.
She didn't even need to sing it. I was just gone, like. But anyway, loved it. Thank you for coming, spending my birthday with me.
Yes, well, okay, we're actually going to the cinema again later because Cathy wanted to go twice in one day. That was your birthday
girl wants what birthday girl gets.
So we're doing a classic double bill, Judy followed by Terminator Dark Fate. I think these movies are going to pair really well together.
I think Terminator's not going to live up to Judy, but I'm willing to be proven wrong.
Here's the thing, you may be listening to these in that order or out of order. We're going to put a poll up on Twitter for you to decide which one you want us to release first at the Cinemile, because we got two of these bad boys to put out.
We never have two done at the same time. Anyway,
so head to our Twitter, head to Facebook, Instagram if you want to chat with us. Let us know if you've seen Judy on a Thursday rainy afternoon like we did. Were you in our audience?
And maybe bring someone like I brought Dave who doesn't want to see it and surprise them, because it's not often you're surprised by movies, right? Usually you kind of get what you think you're going to get.
Yeah, you're right. It did surprise me. Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.
There's a land that you won't forget me, will you? Promise you won't.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
I'm Jessie Cruikshank, and I've always been told I have a face for podcasting. So I launched a podcast. It's called Phone a Friend because each week I'll break down the biggest stories in pop culture. But when I have questions, I get to phone a friend. I'll phone a royal watcher to find out why Prince Harry is acting like a real housewife. I'll phone a tween to please explain Euphoria. And maybe I'll even phone a Backstreet Boy to find out if I still have a chance. I don't? Okay. New episodes drop every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.